to get my microphone.
You don't have a microphone?
Yeah, let me go grab it while you talk, and then. Thanks, David. I forgot to get it after class.
Is this your first time?
Yep, this is my first time. My first time doing this with both of us.
I know, yeah.
He threw me off. What can I say?
Good morning, guys. Hey, welcome. Thank y'all for being here this morning. We're excited about the morning, but before we begin, just wanted to say a few things. Glenn, Carol, thought about y'all a lot this week. Love you guys, and sorry for your loss. Life on this side of heaven is really tough sometimes. So just know that we love you guys and we're thinking of you. You can go ahead and click to that next slide, Peter. I do want to take a minute and say thank you. When we were getting ready to leave to go on Awaken, Chris Sargent found us a van, and the deacons got together and they got us a new van. So I want to say thank you, especially, a new to us van. So I'm excited about our new to us van. It's a 2019. I'm glad Chris Sargent found it. I'm thankful for the deacons who looked at the budget and tried to figure out. Some of our vans are getting pretty used and well loved, so I'm thankful that we have a new one. It'd be nice. And then looking forward to taking it to camp. We didn't get to take it on Awaken, but looking forward to taking it to camp. And then I also want to thank just our elders and you, the church, for allowing us to go on this trip every other year. I know that it's an expensive trip, and I know it requires a lot. So just thank you. It is a powerful week, and I just appreciate so much the opportunity to take kids. Also, while I have the floor, I've told our elders thank you. I'm going to tell them thank you from up here, but also want to tell you, the church, thank you. About a month and a half ago, the elders gave Ashley and I a very generous raise, and I just want to let you know that money is going to be a huge blessing to our family. Making ends meet right now, most of y'all know, is tough. And I was just so grateful for the generosity shown to my family by the church. And then I know we gave Torin a shout out, but we have a couple other babies here. We've got Grayson, Brian, who is here, and then we also have, I think Jenny Wren is here today, right? So yeah, Heather, Brian, Jenny Wren. So fun times. We're excited about all the babies. It's fun stuff. Me and Kate are excited about today. We're excited to let you know all that we experienced, all that we got to do in this week, what we learned, what we saw. We're going to get to kind of be tag teaming the sermon, which is kind of new to us, like he said. I'm super excited about it because I've always wanted to preach up here with Kate, and now here we are. Steele is going to be bringing the communion focus here in a little while. Mia, she helped with kids' song, and I just want to say from up here too that I'm so thankful for Cade and Steele and Mia and them choosing to make interning part of their summer. There's a lot of other things they could have been involved in, but they are such a blessing to me, to David, but especially to our church and our teens. And I'm just thankful that they're here and kind of in this moment. All right, I want to start by just giving you a quick overview of our trip. Just a quick recap. I don't want to go into, it's hard to give lots and lots of stories from up here in a short, brief time. We could sit here and tell stories about things that happened but this is not going to be an exhaustive list of all that went on. Me and Kate talked, and we wanted to tell you about what went on in the trip, but we want to give you something you can take home as well, something that we kind of learned from the trip, something that we gained from the trip, so we want to give you something as well. This was our 6th Awaken trip to take. The first happened in 2013, and we've never had a theme before, but this year we broke the trend, and we had a quasi-theme. The theme idea of Ebenezer came up. And we just felt like the Holy Spirit was kind of leading us in that direction. And I call it a quasi-theme because really we had the word Ebenezer. And we had 2 songs. Still Just As Good by Chris Renzema, not Ledesma.
There we go.
Chris Renzema. And Come Thou Fount. And we took those two songs and we took this idea of Ebenezer and we just thought, hey, let's see what God does with this throughout the week. And God, like He usually does, He showed up because He's good like that. So here is what we did, quick Cliff Notes version. All right. Oh, there you go. Before we get to, I'm not going to show a ton of pictures today. You'll get to see some pictures of all that we did. There are way more pictures to see. You can see things. So on Wednesday night, after we have our Devo in the gym, we are going to have a slideshow in here, and for parents and any members that want to, and our kids, and we're going to show a lot more pictures, all the fun stuff we got to do, all the cool mountain pics that we have. We're going to show those. But just so you know, if you want to watch those pictures, they'll be in here Wednesday right after church. All right. Let's see. Sunday, June 18th. We left out early in the morning. What time was it, Kate, when we left?
Pretty much right at 6. I mean,
Yeah,
we were actually on time.
We did not have to call
Yeah.
anybody and wake them up, go knock on any doors. Robert Eaton, if you're here. And so then we made the long van ride. This is us as we were pulling in. This was Merrick trying to take a selfie, I think, but didn't work out.
Turned out to be super cinematic, though.
Yeah. So made it to Colorado. This was the smoothest Awaken trip we've ever had. We had no major hiccups. We had a couple hiccups before the trip ever started. We lost a house, didn't get to rent. We had to find another house last second. So there were some things like that. But once we were actually on the trip, things went pretty smooth. On Monday, I'll go back to Monday, Peter. Yeah, there you go. Monday, we woke up. We had an acclimation hike to Browns Creek Falls. Some beautiful vistas. It's about a 6-mile hike. We are from zero elevation really around here, or whatever it is. So hiking at 9,000 feet or so was we had to get acclimated. So we went on a hike. The first quarter mile of that hike, I thought I had several going to quit on me because it's really tough. But everybody hung in, and we got to go to the falls and got to see some pretty stuff. All right, Tuesday. We conquered fears at the adventure park. You can see on a swing. We got Ansel and Rylan on a pamper pole. We got, that's Riley and is that Kristen? Somebody going across. It's a big adult playground, but you're suspended way high in the air. We talk about all the analogies there are and all the metaphors there are to our faith walk at night when we kind of get to debrief about all that. Wednesday. We had Summit Day, but our Summit Day this year was replaced by Mohawk Day. We took a walk to a place called Mohawk Lake, another 6-ish mile hike, round trip. Lots of elevation gain. It's not an easy hike. But at the top, you got to sit by this mountain lake. This is the reason that we didn't have a summit hike. This was 2 days before we arrived in Colorado, I think, or 3 days before we arrived. There you had a lot of late snow, so we did not get to stand on top of a mountain this year, but it was still pretty cool to get to go stand by a mountain lake, and Mohawk Lake is one of the prettiest hikes I've ever been on, so it's pretty neat. So that was Wednesday. Thursday, Wendy says she loves Water Day. That's her favorite day. After walking the other day, she said Water Day was her favorite. But we went rafting. We got to enjoy some time at the hot springs, and then we actually got to watch the stars come out. We had our worship under the stars that night. So there's Pat doing his best Spider-Man impersonation.
You can notice the rest of us are paddling.
The rest, yeah, there's Kate right there working hard, paddling through the rapid, and Pat is acting like Spider-Man. All right, and then Friday, that was an easier day. We just had a nice flat hike. But then that was probably the most dangerous day because we had to cross a street at the end of the hike to go sit by this raging river that if you accidentally fell in or put your bag in, right, Rylan? You might lose it forever. Rylan was saved by a tree branch that caught his bag or something, but he did have a bag fall in there. All right, so, and then Saturday morning, another early departure. You can go to Saturday, Peter. Another early departure, some more time on the merry-go-round in Dalhart, and we get back home about 8. Now, that's a quick rundown of everything that we did. If you go look at the next slide, Peter, that doesn't tell you about all the daily worship that we did, the daily challenges. We have daily solo time built in. We had daily opportunities to see and experience God's amazing creation. We had daily opportunities to serve those around us. We've got teams making meals and all kinds of stuff. We have daily opportunities to build relationships, with those walking alongside you as you walk along the trail together, and daily opportunities to face fears, get out of your comfort zone, and learn to trust in the one who calls you his. So lots going on. Didn't tell you about all of that. That is a super quick rundown. But if you're an adult and you're interested in a lot of fun, Kristen will be planning a trip for next summer. She'll be getting out some information for Renew 2024. So there you go. That is the quick rundown and the plug for Renew. All right, Cade, you have been to my office, right? There's my office, my new office. When Stan retired, I got to move down the hall, and I was super excited because there were lots of shelves. And the shelves meant I could display all kinds of lovely things.
Creepy things.
What?
Lots of creepy things.
Lots of creepy things, yeah. It is a wonderland of oddities, right? You don't have to be there long before you notice some unusual things, like Molly. You can go ahead and do that next one. See, Molly, man, it reminds me of the summer that my interns found a dead mole in the parking lot. We put him under the windshield wiper of the van, and he rode around with us all summer. And then I just couldn't get rid of him. He'd been through so much with us. So I kept him in a kind of airtight jar. I found that in the kitchen. So sorry if somebody donated that. That's what it's used for now. Or the classic Tadpole DiCaprio. Steel was, you can go to the next one. Yeah, we created this whole comic scene one night at about 3 a.m. At a lock-in. You were part of it. You were there.
It was great. It's legendary.
Yeah, Steele was there. I think Books might have been there. I don't remember who all was there. We had quite the crew, and as they were coming up with these crazy tales, I was just overdrawn. And we came up, and I think Steele had kind of started the Tadpole DiCaprio figure there in the middle. But that reminds me of the lock-in and just the fun that we had and the camaraderie that we had and the funny stories. Or what about Handbell Messiah? Oh, yeah, there he is. That reminds me of Pat Hall. If you go in my office, you'll see that. Not because Pat looks like Jesus in a lot of ways, but also it reminds me of Pat because he went to our family reunion auction, and because I wasn't there at the family reunion, he bought me a bunch of treasures, and he left them in my office for me. And so when I see old Handbell Messiah there, it reminds me of my good friend and cousin Pat. Or maybe my favorite right here is Bacon Arms Jesus. Bacon Arms Jesus reminds me of Blake Bryant. If you wonder why he's called Bacon Arms Jesus, you can go to the next slide. His left arm looks like bacon. And so that's all Blake would tell me when he texted me. He said, I bought you something. I was like, what is it? And he's like, all I'm going to tell you is Bacon Arms Jesus. But it means something to me because Blake was on a mission trip far away from me, and he saw something hideous, and he thought, I know just the guy that would appreciate this. And he bought me Bacon Arms Jesus. But it reminds me of Blake. Cade, do you have anything kind of like that you've been standing up there a long time? Sorry, I just got to talking and...
Well, mine is a lot less creepy than his. Peter, you can go to the next slide. It should be up there. But yeah, so mine is a knife made in Malawi. So it's not a dead mole or anything. It's a knife given to me by Andy Jewell. I don't know how many of you people in here know the Jewells, but they're missionaries, and they're very close to my family, and we love them so much. And they're people that I see once every couple years. They are always on the move, and I talk to Andy almost about that same frequency. We rarely talk, but he gave me this, and every time I see him, I think of him. And that's the idea, I think, that these silly little images give us, is that even though Ebenezer is sort of a strange word, and it's from some old Christmas book that no one really reads anymore, and it's from this old Hebrew tradition, the function of it is familiar to us. The idea of having little relics to remind us of things that we can forget and remind us of things that we often don't come into contact with. Like the jewels, I never see them, but every time I see that knife, I can pray for them, for the work that they do in Malawi. Lance?
Cade, that's a pretty cool knife. Your exquisite knife and my dead mole, they remind us of things. They remind us of moments, of events, of certain people. It's pretty cool how our brains are wired. We see an object and we're flooded with memories from the past. Think about it. We go on vacation. What do we want?
Souvenir.
A souvenir, right? Why? To remind us. Our local high school team wins the state championship. And what happens? We write it on the local water tower, or we put a sign up at the city limits. Why? To remind everybody what happened at this moment. Our country is in a war. What do? The war's over, we put up a monument, right? Why? To help us remember, so that we won't forget what happened and who fought and who sacrificed for us. There's this cool story in 1 Samuel. It's one of the stories we really focused on kind of during Awaken. We had 3 or 4 stories, but this is the one we wanted to focus on for today. Okay?
Well, it's the same story that Mario read out of a couple minutes ago. It comes in 1 Samuel chapters 5 through 7. And Israel is still a pretty young nation. They don't have a king yet. They are newly into this land of Canaan, and they're sort of dealing with a lot of enemies they have, chief among them the Philistines. And in chapter 5, we see that the Philistines have captured the Ark of the Covenant. And the Israelites don't go get it. They don't go try and take it back, even though the Ark is the power and the presence of God. It's the most holy thing that they own. But the Philistines take it, and the Israelites don't pursue. And we read about 2 chapters of the Ark of the Covenant causing some problems with the Philistines. They try and set it up next to their idols, and it destroys them. And then they try and move it to the next city, and it causes panic, and it causes disease. And then they move it to another one, and the same thing keeps happening. And eventually, they're so sick of it that they say, okay, we're going to send this ark back to the Israelites. We're done with it. We don't want it. And so without the Israelites having done anything, God makes his way back to his people. Just by being who he is. Just by being so holy that no one else can even keep his presence. And the ark comes back, and the people rejoice. They throw this big party. They offer sacrifices. And then 20 years go by. And Samuel says this in chapter 7, verse 3. And Samuel said to all the house of Israel, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtoreth from among you, and direct your heart to the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. 20 years is all it took. They were so excited about the ark being back. And 20 years later, Samuel's saying, you guys are right back where you were. You're serving foreign gods. You're setting up idols to Baal. So choose right here, right now. If you are going to serve God, serve him wholeheartedly, and he will deliver you from the hands of your enemies. And so they fast and they pour out water over this place. And the Philistines come, and there's this huge battle, and God gives them victory. But before that happened, Samuel had offered a sacrifice. And so when God gives him victory, Samuel remembers that sacrifice that he made before the Lord. And in verse 12 it says, Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and called its name Ebenezer, for he said, thus far has the Lord helped us. Amen. He set that up because he knew that people were going to forget again. And that was his reminder to them of just exactly what God had done for them.
As humans, we need reminders because, man, we're pretty forgetful. Something just to jog our memory, something to help us recall what happened and where we've been. The same is true in my faith, maybe even more so. how easily do I forget God's provision, His protection, His compassion, His deliverance, His love for me, right? It's like a new giant shows up, another enemy rears its ugly head, famine once again shows up at my doorstep, or Satan begins to whisper in my ear to tempt me with things I know I should stay far away from. And what do? I panic, and I wonder, is my God big enough? And I doubt if the God of all things can deliver me from this thing. This trial is just too big. This test just too difficult. And in those moments, man, it's so easy to forget. Take this Awaken trip. Ashley and I, we began planning it a long time. And and as soon as we started planning, what did I do? Almost immediately. I even talked to Ashley about it. I began wondering and doubting. Is God going to show up this year? What's this trip going to be like? And why would I do that? I have no reason to doubt. All I have to do is to look back at the trail I have already walked. This is our 6th trip. And in the previous 5, you know what? God's been right in the middle of it all. I'm convicted because I've forgotten the faithfulness of my God. Why would I immediately doubt when He has proved over and over to me otherwise? It's because I've forgotten that He is a God who answers prayers, hears my cries, and gives good gifts. Have you ever been there? Ever felt that? I know we're called to be faithful, but have you ever forgotten how faithful God is to us? If you look, God showed up on every trip. 2013, you can roll through those, Peter. 2015, 2017, 2019, 2021, and then this year. God shows up. But it's easy to forget, and we've all been there. But before I start beating myself up, or before you start beating yourself up too bad, God knows us. He knows His creation, and He knows how easily we forget. The Bible is first and foremost a book about God's love. But coming in a close second, it's probably a story about man's forgetfulness. As we read through the Bible, there's these numerous occasions where a place is named this, or a marker is placed here, or a feast is created, or a sacrifice is made. All in an effort to help everyone remember what happened in this place at that moment. God is constantly trying to remind His people that He is there, that He is the God who saves, and He is faithful. If you think about the Israelites, the scriptures pile up when we see how many times God reminds them that He is the God who brought them out of Egypt. Deuteronomy 6:12 says, "Be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery." He's the God who led them through the wilderness. He is the God who fed them along the journey. He is the God who provided the promised land. Why is God reminding them? Don't they know this stuff? Because we aren't very good at remembering. We are prone to forget, prone to wander from the God we love. That's why we have to mark our Ebenezer moments, as Cade was saying. It's so important that we can name our Ebenezer moments, these times where we place a stone marker next to our path and we say, on this day, at this moment, God helped me. He was near. It's vital to my faith that I be able to look back and see where God has shown up for me before, to be reminded that He who calls me His is able and faithful. When I glance back at my path, when I look at the path that I've walked and I see it littered with these Ebenezers, right? These monuments serve as reminders. It helps me remember that my God is indeed faithful and that I can face whatever is in front of me on the trail. The moments remind me that He will show up because He has shown up. Our path dotted with these Ebenezers is all the proof I need that God provides. It's Paul looking back in 1 Timothy 1:12 saying, I know whom I have believed and am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted for him that day. Convinced. It's a cool word. Paul knows that God will show up because he can look back at his path and see the cairns, the piles of rocks, the Ebenezers that mark his journey with the Lord. Our hope and our prayer was that these kind of trips, this Awaken trip, serves as an Ebenezer, a moment that we would look back at years from now and know it was a moment that our faith came more into focus, right? A moment we knew God was near, a moment we knew that he was at work in our lives.
And this is a very Old Testament idea. I'd like to read a little bit out of Deuteronomy chapter 6. And starting in verse 4, it says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you arise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as a sign on your forehead. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. God is a God of generational love. It's important that that comes up in Deuteronomy because Moses is reading the book of the law to the second generation of Israelites who have been delivered out of Egypt. Their parents were the ones who saw God on Sinai, who saw the cloud and the pillar of fire, and who saw the Red Sea be parted. And those parents told those kids. And now he's saying, tell your kids. Two things that come up most commonly in the Bible, in the Old Testament especially, is when God introduces himself, he says, the Lord, the God of your fathers. He says that so often in the Old Testament because he wants to remind you that I am the God who served your dad. I am the God who served your ancestors. I am the God who was here before you were, and I'll be here after you're here. I am eternal, and I am ever present. The second thing that comes up a lot is God says, the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. And about 80% of the time that he says that, those people never were in Egypt. He says that to people whose great-great-great-grandfather were in Egypt 8 generations ago. And yet he reminds them, I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. God knows his people are forgetful. And so he has determined to make himself a remembering kind of God. A God who does things in such a way and instructs us to deal with them that we can't forget about them because that's how holy he is. Because like Lance said, if he was faithful then, he'll be faithful now.
If I can get you guys to come up, sit on our Awaken participants, we're gonna show a video, and I want you to see and hear from them what they learned and some of their Ebenezer moments along this trip. We had 44 people on the trip, but as you see their Ebenezer moments and see a couple pictures of some of these guys, I want you to think about your own Ebenezer moments. Where has God granted you victory? Where has he shown up for you? Where has he given you great rescue or helped with an escape? When has he given you a provision of immense comfort? Where all will you place a stone marker along your path? Right? Where are we going to set up those Ebenezer moments so that we can remember? Where were your Ebenezer moments? Right? Okay.
Just a few things as we finish up for today. I like how that song says, stack it stone by stone. Because really, we're all just a combination of our Ebenezer moments. That's what being a Christian is. Living reminders of what God has done for us. If you are buried with Christ, you shall raise with him again. That's what Paul says. Also like how it says, my faith will surely falter. The reason we have Ebenezers is because our faith falters, not because we're perfect. Ebenezers, just as much as they're reminders of God's faithfulness, they're reminders of our fallibility. And that's what being human is, but thanks be to Christ. And thanks be to God who has not left us without a Redeemer. I want to read you something from Hebrews chapter 11. I don't know if any of you guys were in here a few weeks ago. We finished Hebrews on Wednesday nights. And something to know about Hebrews is the writer is trying to convince these relatively new Christians to keep with the faith, to remember Christ, and to not fall back into their old ways. And in the climax of his argument, he has this to say, Hebrews 11, starting in verse 32. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins and sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains, and in dens and caves of the earth. And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us they should not be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. That verse shows us that the people around us are reminders of what God has done. The people that have gone before us are reminders of what God has done. Just as much as I, stone by stone, Ebenezer by Ebenezer, am a Christian, this church, stone by stone, is a spiritual house of worship. And each one of you is a reminder to each other that God saves, that God is real, and that Jesus lives. If you haven't accepted Jesus, please, let this be the day. In the Old Testament, when they would take a town, God would say, all right, destroy the walls, destroy the buildings, destroy the army, and also kill all the cows. And they would be confused. Why do we have to kill the cows? Because God says, everything is devoted to me. Everything. If you haven't devoted everything to Christ, please do so. Talk to me, talk to Lance, talk to our elders or one of their wives, please. Jesus is worth it. He's worth killing the parts of your life that are holding you back, that are keeping you from living with the joy of Jesus. Let's stand and sing, Come Thou Fount.